This episode sponsored by Lake Monster Details, producing the Don's Light and Magic Legacy line of parts, offering upgrade parts and decals for accuracy, special effects, and lighting. Visit www.lakemonsterdetails.com and make it glow. Also sponsored by GCals, producing aftermarket replacement decals and custom quality graphics for your favorite spaceships. Visit www.gcals.company.site and add some personalization to your sci-fi models today. Also sponsored by Mask Design, boldly going where no masking kit has gone before. Take your model to the next level of detail and accuracy with a masking kit from Mask Design. Visit Mask Design on Facebook or click the ordering link in the notes below the video. Also sponsored by Paragrafix. Add superior detail and accuracy to your models with photo etch, resin, and multimedia accessories from your first source for photo etch parts and more. Paragrafix. They count rivets so you don't have to. Visit Paragrafix at www.paragrafix.biz or click the link in the notes below this video.
Hey, what's up, fellow modelers? Will here. Welcome to the Ensign's Chair. So again, it's been a while, but this is kind of the busy season for my day job, and it has been crazy busy. So I've been working some pretty long hours, and when I get home, I don't have a lot of time really to work on the models. So I really only get a day or two a week, and even that's kind of sporadic to work on stuff. But I have been making progress on stuff. I do have stuff recorded for well, not only this, the 1537 Reliant, but I've also got some stuff recorded for the what did I do with that part, the 1537 Enterprise B, and also the 1000 Excelsior that I'm working on. So I do have some stuff recorded for it. It's just not enough yet to put out episodes for all those things. So once I get enough stuff together, I get to a certain stage completion, I'll put out a video on that stuff. But right now, what I've been able to work on the most is this 1537 Reliant, and I've had a lot of stuff I've been working on the side. I've been helping Cass out over at Lake Monster Details with a project, which I'm sure he'll put out some information on soon. And I have also been working on masks for that 1537 Enterprise B that I'm working on. I've been having to make my own paint masks to do some details of that, but another issue I've been having is my printers. Both of my 3D printers went down. My big one had been down for a while, and I just hadn't bothered getting I just need a replacement vat for it. Because finally, after replacing my FEP sheets for so long, I've had almost 2 years now, I wore out the screws on it. It won't tighten enough, and I get leaks. So I had to order a new vat for that. So I got that. That's what I'm working now. But that big M3 Max takes longer to print stuff than my Photon Mono X. So I've got a part on order for that Photon Mono X to come in, so I can start getting some other stuff cleared, because a lot of my resins I've got dialed in for the Photon Mono X, but not dialed in on the M3 Max. And I've tried to print them on the M3 Max and get them dialed in. They just don't work out as well. So I've got some clear parts I need to print on that 1000 Excelsior and on that 1537 Enterprise B, and on this. So I've got some clear stuff I need to print, but I can't print it because the clear resin is just not working out too well on my M3 Max. But I've got that part on order, should be here next week, or maybe even later this week. So I get that fixed. Plus I've got a brand new Anycubic. Thank you to Cass over Lake Monster Details for helping me out with that. But I've got a new printer, an I think it's an Anycubic M5, I think. Photon M5, something like that. But I've got a new printer coming, so I'll have 3 printers now. So when I do run into an issue, I thought that just having 2 would be great. But one goes down, then the other one goes down, then I got both printers down, and I can't print anything. So having the third one will be great. Plus, it's my Photon Mono X is a little out of date. I don't even think they support it anymore, really, because now they've got the Mono X2 out. So, but anyway, I digress. We are here for the 1537 Reliant. I've got some add-on parts that I'm going to be putting out or making available for purchase. We're going to talk about that in this video, plus this will go over into a second episode as far as doing the modifications to the hull that I'm going to do. And then once we get these modifications done, we start looking at lighting, and then we'll start looking at assembly and painting in earnest. So, without further ado, give me a minute. I'll put you on the bench. We'll get to work. All right, so since I'm still waiting for the replacement part for my printer, my 3D printer for these pieces, these inserts, I'm going to go ahead and start working on replacing this with the Lake Monster Details BC deck from Cass over there. And basically what you got to do is you've got to drill out this part around here. And what Cass wants you to do is basically drill out around here. So you've got to trace out the part around here. Now this is going to sit pretty much flush, it looks like, with the back of the vent here. And he does have, it looks like he's got these replacement dimples on there. So basically we want to cut close to the back edge of this vent, or the forward edge of the vent here, and then follow that line around the deck back around. So I'm going to work on that, and that's going to take me a little bit, because basically what you got to do is take your drill, and you want to drill at an angle, or you want to drill horizontally into it, is basically what Cass says. You don't want to drill down into it like this, because then you're going to make it a hole too big. So you want to drill into the side, basically the bottom edge of the BC deck, in order to take this out. And then when you've got a little bit left, you can work that a little bit away with sandpaper, or in my case I've got a grinding wheel for this, a sanding wheel I can use to take that down some more, and then I can fine tune it with sanding paper, or I can fine tune it with a file. So I'm going to work on that, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like after I'm done. So stay tuned. Alright, so I'm about halfway done drilling this out, and you can see what that looks like when you drill it. You want to drill just above that bottom edge. So that's what I'm doing, coming along here drilling, and you can see you want to step up where this steps up at, where you've got this platform where the back end comes up here a little bit. And just keep on going around, and then come just in front of that vent, but don't nick the vent itself. You want that to stay intact. You don't want to have to come in and do a lot of fix up on that. So just do just a little bit ahead of that vent, and then keep on coming around. And basically what this looks like, again, you want to drill at an angle horizontal to the saucer. Alright. So now we got that drilled out all the way around. You can basically come in with your hobby knife and just break through to each hole. And you see it's real easy to cut around this. Please be careful with sharp instruments. Oops, just broke the point off. That's alright. I've had this blade on here a while. It's getting about time to replace it anyway. I actually need to just replace this hobby knife because the blade doesn't stay in here real tight anymore. If I pull it out, it ends up getting stuck in the plastic. There we go. Alright. Just keep on around with it. Oh, there we go. So there is our old BC deck, and here's our new BC deck. I should also mention that this one is correctly shaped, unlike this one. This one here doesn't really have much of a overhang where you've got that gray stripe that goes around here, but this one does. This one's got more of an overhang like it's supposed to have. It's more recessed like it should be. I don't know if I mentioned, but he's also got those you see those black dots that go around the top of the BC deck in front of the bridge. He's also got those molded in this too, so that's a great thing too. The only thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to drill, and I've got to look back at the studio model and make sure. It looks like there's a light here. I'm not sure, maybe that's just an injection mold site. But I've got to drill a hole through this bridge in order to run the SMD to put a strobe there. So that's one thing I am going to have to do to that. But I'm going to have to sand it down a little bit because it's got a pretty good bulb on it there. And if you try to sand or try to drill into that, it's not going to go in the center. So I'm going to have to sand it off and then make sure I get a good start on that drill bit to drill a hole through this and through the bottom. And I don't know if you can make it out, but this piece is crystal clear. I mean, it's just really clear. I don't know how Cass gets it that clear. My 3D printed materials just don't seem to come that clear. But so we've got this all drilled out. Now we shouldn't be able to fit this in here right yet because we still got to work out, especially at the back here. I've got to even this out and cut away all those little bits and pieces. But other than that, it's actually should drop right into place once we get these little bits cut out. So I'm gonna do some sanding here and some filing. You can take a file and work it out if you want, but I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna use my rotary sander on my Dremel and cut this down real quick, and then we'll come back. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Time for a test fit. It looks like I'm gonna have to take a little bit off the back side. I can't take any more off here without touching the vent. So it looks like I might have to take just a little bit off this back side here in order for this to fit. Or maybe I just don't. No, never mind. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take just a little bit off here this back side, or I'm gonna have to come in a little bit more on this front side, do a little more work on it to get this to drop into place. It's maybe a millimeter or two too far back still, so I'm gonna have to take a little bit more material off, and we'll get this to fit in place. So give me a couple minutes. All right, so I finally got that part worked in. You just when you start working, once you get that initial cutout, just gradually work on it little by little, and just take a little bit off at a time until this drops right into place, and you'll feel it kind of clip in there just like you just heard at some point, and you'll get that seal around there. Now I've got to glue this in place yet, but you can see how that's going to fit in there, and it's going to take a little bit of putty work. Not too much around the base, because it's the way Cass did this was it kind of runs into the hole. So I'll probably have to might just be able to get away with just a little bit of perfect plastic putty around this edge, and back here I'll have to use probably some Bondo, because there's a pretty good seam across there, and there's not really anything supporting it. It may not be a bad idea to put a piece of sheet styrene on the underside of this at the back, so that get this in there, so that it will sit into place. And when I look at this from the underside, it actually looks like I might have taken out more material than what I needed, because this is the edge right here. So really this was supposed to sit on top of that, but I don't know how that would have worked, because it's got to sit below this vent. So I don't know. Either way, it's in there. This will work like this. I'll probably put a piece of sheet styrene on the back side of this, though. Just it looks like I may have oversized it just a little bit, but I can put a piece of sheet styrene in this spot here to kind of give it more support, and that'll fix that. Either way, I was going to have to put putty across this back seam here. So I can work on that, get this kind of finalized, and then we can come back and take a look at it. Alright, so I've got this piece of sheet styrene. It's one of the thicker pieces of styrene I have. I've got that cut just to fit right in place there, so that will help support that back edge where I oversized the hole a little bit too much. So that'll help support that, but before I do that, that's going to cover the vent, and we've got a piece of photo etch that is going to go over that and give it a nice little detail. But I want this to light, because it looks to me a little bit, when I watch the movie, it looks to me at times you can see a little bit of light coming from this, and even if I'm wrong, it's a cool looking effect. I did that on my my previous build of the Reliant. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my drill, and I'm just going to drill out in between these cross members here. I'm just going to drill these parts open, and the photo etch matches up with these cross members. So that'll help support that photo etch, so I don't have any problems with it falling through. But I want to open this up just enough so some light can get through. And then we'll put that piece of sheet styrene on the back, and what that'll do is that'll diffuse the light so it's not totally bright coming through this, and then we can work with it a little bit if we have to as well. So I'm gonna work on getting this opened up, and then we'll come back and we'll get this piece of support styrene in place, and then we should be ready to get the the BC deck glued on. So give me a minute. All right, so I've got that that replacement BC deck in place. Let's do a little focus here. Well, there you go. You can see how that fits into place. It just rests right around the edges there. Won't be too bad. Not a lot of seam work to do to it, but I didn't overcut that part either on the bottom here. You have to cut this back, otherwise the BC deck won't sit flush with the top edge around the vent here. So you've got to cut that all the way back. If you when I tried to glue this piece to have a little overlap, it just wouldn't let the BC deck sit flush. So I did not overcut that. That actually does need to be cut right up to the edge of the vent right there. So I've got that. I've got that piece of styrene in there, and I have that Paragrafix photo etch part or vent that goes in the back here. I'm not going to glue this in place yet because I've got to do a lot of fiddling with this, and I don't want to damage this while I am working on the rest of the model. But that pretty much is going to sit in there just like that, and you see it adds some nice detail to that spot. So when I put a light on the inside here, it's going to light. You're going to get a little bit of light through that that piece of plastic that I put in there, and it'll light it up, light that grill up just a little bit, give it a little bit of a backlight. And I think what I did last time was I actually painted that piece of styrene on the inside with some Tamiya blue. That way you got a bit of a cool low blue light through that, and I think it looked good. I like the way it looks. So even if it's not 100% screen accurate, you know, if my eyes are wrong and that's not the way it was with the studio model, it's still a pretty cool look to me. So I'm gonna go with that. But so we pretty much got that into place, and there's not really anything you got to do with the bridge, because the bridge is just going to sit right on top of it, and it fits right into place on there. The only thing we got to do with the bridge is light block it, and like I said, I've got to drill a hole here for that strobe light on the top of the bridge. But that's going to light up real nice. It's going to be an easy way to light. I will either make some masks if I can get my Cricut to cut this small of a mask, and I think it will decently enough. I'll use masks on this and then light block it versus scratching it off after I've light blocked it and painted it, which is another method you can do if you don't have a Cricut to make masks. You can just light block it, paint it, and then come back and scratch out where the windows need to be on this. But I'm going to use masks any chance I get, since I have a Cricut. But that wasn't too bad of work. It took me probably about I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour of sitting here and sanding and filing to finagle that thing into place. About an hour, I'd say, if I include the work I did to modify to put that vent the way I wanted it, so that I could put this photo etch in it. Now, I was wrong about one thing. These cross beams on the photo etch don't exactly match up with the plastic in the back. But that's okay, because you're not really going to see that plastic once I get done with this. So I'm not too worried about it not exactly lining up. You have to look real close at it, and you have to get the light in there just right to be able to tell that it doesn't quite line up perfectly with all of those cross members. And once I backlight it, I don't think you're really going to be able to tell either. But we will worry about that when we get to that road. So I'm going to take this photo etch out, and I'm going to put it back in my bag with the rest of it, because I don't want to mess it up. So that is ready to go, and really now what I need to do is get those replacement inserts reprinted, so that way I can show you how these go in and get this part done. And then the modifications for this part are done, because Paul does include, with the Paragrafix photo etch set, he does include the officer's dining lounge window that you can put in the back, and I did that on my last build. It's not any harder to do than on the refit. Matter of fact, on my last one, I actually built a officer's dining lounge out of styrene. I just made one and put it in there and lit it up, and it looked really nice. But not going to be doing that on this one, because in order to do that, I would have to modify the part that Cass has provided. So I'm going to try to mask these windows off for the officer's dining lounge and just light block everything and paint it, and it should be good to go. And then we'll just light it, and if it looks like, I don't think you're going to be able to see anything through those officer's lounge windows on this, but if it does look like I might be able to see something through it, I will build or 3D print, design a 3D print an officer's lounge for that. So that is the work yet to come. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break from this, because I've got to wait for that part still to come in before I can print these pieces and move on. But we'll just take a break a little bit. So it'll be probably a couple days for me, but just a few seconds for you. So stand by. All right, so I'm working on puttying, taking care of this seam around this BC deck insertion. I just wanted to mention, I highly recommend you take some tape and mask off the leading edge of that vent, and also mask off the back edge of your bridge, because I can pull this off now that I've shown you this. What you want to do is, you've got there's two raised areas, two little I don't know what these are back here, but they're raised areas, and if you don't mask that off, try to focus here so you can see this a little bit better. If you don't mask this off, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up getting putty on those parts, and when you go to sand it, you're going to end up sanding this detail off. So if you don't want to sand that detail off, if you mask over it and then mask along this front edge of the vent, that way when you put your putty in, it just goes right into that seam, and it's minimal sanding that you'll have to do. I may have to mask it off again and add some more after I sand it the first time, but at least it protects. See, right now I don't have any putty on these two detail parts right here, these little two raised details here on the back. You'll see, if you get this part, you'll see what I'm talking about. On the model, these aren't very pronounced, so you're probably not at a big loss if you don't use this part, but they're nice and detailed on this part, so I don't want to lose those if I can help it. So what that'll let me do then is take a piece of sandpaper, fold it over real small, and just work that seam itself rather than sanding all of this and taking away those two little details. So I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna finish puttying around this, because this is going to take some putty around the edge here to kind of blend it in. So I'm gonna work on that, and we'll come back and take a look. Alright guys, so real quick, while my putty is drying, I figured I'd address these marker lights. You got a little bit of a bump here where it's simulating where your running lights, your nav lights would be. All I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my knife and put it at the base of that bump and just cut it right off. It comes off like that. You take a little bit of sandpaper. You want it to be somewhat flat at least, because when you go to try to drill this, if it's not flat, the drill bit will try to wander off on you, and you'll end up with a hole where you don't want it. So let's see, I've got that sanded flat, and all I'm going to do is take my pin vise and center it on there and just drill the hole in. Run this drill bit through here a little bit just to kind of open it up just a little bit more, but we don't need it to open up too much. And there we go. Now we have a hole there ready for to install our nav light on there. So I'm going to do this one over here. I already did this one too. I'm going to do this one here, and then we'll give it a little bit for this putty to dry, and we'll come back. I'll do a little sanding on it. We'll come back, take a look. Alright guys, so real quick, don't forget that in addition to these three nav lights here, you've also got one in each corner and one light on either side of the impulse crystal. But one other thing I want to mention was, if you can make this out, it's like a weird injection mark right here beside my impulse crystal, and I don't recall that being there last time I built this model, so I'm not sure what the deal is with that. Maybe you know, let me know in the notes below. Does yours have this injection mark on here, or is it just mine? But I'm gonna have to try to work that out. I've got my file here, so I can get in here without tearing up or completely eliminating this raised spot here for the one nav light here. So I'm gonna work on that. But just wanted to make sure I mentioned that you do have to drill out these four on the back here as well. We'll be back in a minute. I've been working on these inserts for the front here to replace or add that missing detail, and done quite a bit of work to it. These are not perfectly in there because what I was working on was getting these to flush fit without tearing up the detail that you can see I've got added on there. But then I realized when I was looking at some photos of the studio model, and I'll show you this photo here, that these don't sit flush with the hull. They actually stick out just a little bit from the hull. So you don't have to make these flush fit. So what I've done is I went back and reworked these, and I've made these to where you would just cut out enough to make these fit into place, and they're thin enough to where they can just sit on top of the hull and recreate that effect. So I've got these worked out. It's taken me quite a bit to get all the angles correct and get these worked out, but these should be hopefully pretty easy to install now. Unlike over here, I've had to do a lot of putty work and careful sanding. I've been using my perfect plastic putty just in case I got putty into any of the detail on this. I could just come in with a Q-tip and clean it out, unlike if I had used my Bondo. Sometimes with the Bondo you can come in with like I've got my Tamiya paint remover, airbrush cleaner actually is what it is, and that actually will sometimes remove that Bondo, but it's not guaranteed, and it's kind of hard to do to get it all out. But the perfect plastic putty, just a little bit of water on the Q-tip, and this will come out of any detail that you get into. So great stuff to use, especially when you're using it around the detail area and you don't want to take a chance of getting putty into it and not being able to get it out. So I still got a little bit more work to do on this. They're looking pretty good, but they need a little bit, just a little bit more finessing to them. You can see I've got them sticking out just a little bit there. So I've reworked those, and I think I've got these other ones ready to install. So basically the way these are going to go in is take the part, and it should fit right into place. You want to make sure that, let me zoom it in here a little bit for you if I can. You want to hold it into place. You want to make sure it's even across the top edge here. And then I'm just going to take my pencil and mark a line. And also mark a line on this edge right here. So that way I know where I need to remove material. So that line's in place. And then take the other one and hold it, and it fits right into the corner here where this curved edge is. It just sits in there again. You want to make sure that this sits flush or even across the top. And you want it to be even with this line that you just drew on this side. So once I've got that in a good spot, and then again a line on the side here. You don't need to do one on the bottom, because the bottom we're just going to keep just above where it flattens out to the top of the saucer here. So we don't need to draw a line on the bottom. We know we're going to keep it above this line here, this joint. So once we got that in place, then we can take our drill, and I don't have my drill bit set up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill this out just like I did for this part. You want to drill inside, well inside of that line. Don't drill on the line, because if you drill on the line, you're going to make it too big, and then you have to do a lot more putty work. Doing it this way, hopefully this part will just sit flush in there once we get done. So I'm going to do some work on this, and then we'll come back and see how it does. Cut out and fit into place, and you can see hopefully that they sit pretty close to the hull. If I can get this lighting to work out properly, it's kind of, the white's kind of washing out the black, so it's hard to see, but it turned out pretty well. And the good thing is about doing this is that you don't have to get this hole perfect and cleaned up to flush fit. So because this is going to cover over that completely and then just sit out from the hole just slightly, just like on the studio model. So I've got those worked out, and all I got to do now is get these glued in place. I know they're hard to see because this camera's the white the white of the hole is kind of washing it out, making it hard to see these, but hopefully it's coming out on camera. So all I got to do now is get these glued in place, put a little bit of I'll probably use my my little slurry mix that I make with and keep handy with the Perfect Plastic Putty, just adding a little water to it, and I'll probably use that to kind of fill in any gaps that might be around the edge of this. And come in with Q-tip, clean it up, and these should be good to go. So I'm going to do that, and we'll come back and take one more look at it. Alright guys, so I've got the those inserts in. You can see they're glued in place, and I just took, like I said, I took a little bit of that Perfect Plastic Putty and some water that I keep in a bottle with a needle applicator, and I just run a bead of that around the edge of these windows, these inserts, and you can see they're in place now. And then what I'll do is I'll take, I gotta get some more Q-tips, but I'll take a Q-tip, put in some water, and I'll just work around the edges and smooth out and clean it up. And that should be all it takes to get those inserted. So while those are drying, two other things to work on though. I've got, if you notice on the kit part, you've just got this kind of, let me focus this up here a little bit. Just kind of got this plain sensor. It's supposed to be a sensor, or maybe I think a deflector. Instead of a deflector dish, I think that's what the Reliant has, if I recall. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, but I think that's what these are supposed to be. But it's just kind of, there's no detail here. So what I did was I made a 3D part modeled after the studio model, and you can see that here. And I'll show you a picture of what that looks like on the studio model real quick. But there's a picture of the studio model in that same area. And then if you look back at this, you'll see I got it looking pretty close to what it looks like on the studio model. Definitely way better than that. So I've got that worked out. The other thing I did was I came in and I redid this, what I'm calling the mechanical pit. Sensor mechanical pit is what I'm calling it. Deflector mechanical pit, whatever. You know, if these are supposed to be replacements for deflectors. These are basically the same things, I think, that are on around the deflector dish on the refit. So I think that's what those are. But I did a more detailed, got a little bit of that Perfect Plastic Putty on my pointer. I did a more detailed mechanical pit. The one that was on the model I just wasn't too happy with. And I might have to focus a little bit more so you can see that a little bit better. Let's see. There you go. And you can see the detail I added on that and printed it up. And also on the front, it was missing, it's missing these kind of slots right here on the front end. I keep getting Perfect Plastic Putty on my pointer. It was missing these kind of, there's like vents on the front here or something that were missing. So I did a part to replace that and make it more accurate. And it's basically just a just an insert that I did up, and it's got those vent details on the front. And all you got to do to install this part is take a file or that and remove the detail on the inside. You got to remove the sides. There's a little bit of a detail piece that kind of sticks out that's going to be replaced by this piece here. You want to file all that down. You can use sandpaper too, but it's probably easier to do it with a file. File all that down, and then this piece just slides right in there. And you just glue it in place and do the same thing like I just did with the windows. A little bit of that thinned out Perfect Plastic Putty around the edges. Let it dry. Come in with a Q-tip and clean it up. And that's going to be a lot more accurate than the molded in part on the model. So I've got that. So what I got to do is I've got to take my drill, just like you did with the windows, and just remove this nub here, this hump. I'm just going to drill that very carefully and just remove that out of there, and then I'm going to come in with my files and file it out until this little piece, if I can find it, this little piece here will fit right into that spot. So I'll open that up just enough to get that to fit in there and then glue it in place. And again, same thing, same drill with the perfect plastic putty thinned out. Just come in around it, let it dry. Again with a Q-tip, easy to do. So let me work on those. I'm going to drill this out and I'll come back and show you what that looks like drilled out so that this piece can just slide in there. And I'll get this new mechanical pit glued in place, and we'll come back and take a look here in a minute. All right, guys, so I've got that opened up. You can see how I've got that opened up. Basically just drilled, as always, still drill inside, well inside of where you want to open it up at, and then just use your hobby knife and kind of trim away till you get the general opening and shape and size that you want. And then basically just take the piece here, piece of fuzz in there, and just keep working on it until it fits in there. See, it's still not quite where it needs to be to fit in there. And also I do is take my files. I've got a bunch of different micro files here, and I just take it and work in and keep working on it until, if I can get this to focus back out, and just keep working on this opening little by little. You don't want to open it up too much, but I just keep working on it with my files. I really need to attach my camera separate from the separate from my workbench so it's not doing all this shaking when I'm working on something. But just want to keep working on it gradually, a little bit at a time, and then just keep test fitting your piece, and eventually you'll get it to where it fits in there the way that you need it to. Let's see. Yeah, we're close. Getting close to it. But that's what I'm working on to get this piece to fit in there. And once I get this in place, we'll come back and we'll take another look at it. All right, so I've got all this, all that done on the front there. Turned out pretty nice. I got a little more work to do. Let me focus again here. A little more work to do along the bottom edge here to blend it in a little better. The top looks pretty good, but yeah, you can see that that new mechanical pit that's in there, and then this new sensor deflector piece, whatever that is there. But I'm sure there's a technical name for that somebody can throw out there, but I don't know if off the top of my head. So I think that looks a lot better than what the standard kit looks like coming out of the box. And that's pretty much the mods for the top saucer part. I am working on the bridge, and you can see I've got that. What I did was I masked off where I need that red light to come through on both sides of the dome. And I did use the Paragrafix photo etch part on the back of this, so I'm working on blending that in now. I got a little work to do with that, but I just want to say, somebody asked these parts that come from Lake Monster Details. People have had issue, well, at least one person has reached out to me and said they had an issue with getting paint to stick to it. Well, you got to clean these parts real good. And what I would typically do with some of the larger parts that come in clear, it's mainly the clear resin, I think, that people are having an issue with. But and Cass puts it on his instructions. In big letters there, wash your parts. You have to wash these, and especially the clear resin. What I usually do is I will take these, and the larger parts, I'll typically wash them in Dawn soap, sand them a little bit, and then I'll wipe them down with some isopropyl alcohol to remove anything else. Little parts like this, because it's really hard to really get much sanding done on it, basically what I do is I take it and just give it an isopropyl alcohol bath. I'll put it in isopropyl alcohol for about 30 seconds, take it out, wipe it off real good, and then I'll repeat it 1 or 2 more times, just to make sure I get any of the release agent off of this. Otherwise, that paint does peel off of these clear resin parts. So just a little tip for that: make sure you wash these parts out real good, and it doesn't hurt to wipe them down with a little isopropyl. It's not going to hurt the part. So I've got this ready. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I drilled out the opening where the strobe is going to go on the back of the bridge there. So this is just about ready. I got a little more work to do, like I said, blending that photo etch part in back here. This side turned out pretty good, but this part here I can still see a little bit of a gap. So I'm filling that in. I got to let that dry now. But I'll just follow up on this on the next video, because I kind of want to get this video done and get it put out. It's been a little over 2 weeks probably now since I've gotten the video out, but that should be great once it gets done. I'll get this blended in the back. I'll do another primer coat to make sure it's all completely light blocked, and then I'll go ahead and do my my white coat. I'll be using the Rust-Oleum 2X white primer for my top coat on these. So that's what I'll do with that, and then that'll be ready to attach and paint. And I'll talk a little more. There's a couple other steps to that too in order to get that lit up. So I'll talk about that more next episode. One other thing that I meant to mention too, if you look at, I want you to look at on these front parts here, I want you to pay attention to the lower corner, lower right corner on this part, lower left corner on this side in this picture. And when you look at that picture, you'll notice that they're not the same in that bottom corner. The left side, which would be the starboard side on there, is there's 2 windows in that bottom corner. However, on the port side, on that right side of the picture as you're looking at it, there's 1 window. So I noticed in looking at both the photo etch and the Mask Design paint masks for the windows for that section, that they both have the 1 window, which isn't a big deal. Most people aren't going to care, and it's easy to add those windows. Obviously, with Paul's photo etch from Paragrafix, you can just move this over a little bit and drill that extra window in, or you can just eyeball it and drill that window, that extra window on the one side. With the Mask Design paint masks, you can either make that hole, or you can peel the mask off, move it over a little bit, put it back down, mask off everything else that you've already painted, and just paint that 1 window to add it if you want to do that. So those are your options. But I noticed that when I was looking at the photos of the studio model, that is different. It's not the same on each side. You do have, in that bottom corner, the difference in the windows there. These ones in the center are pretty much identical. And also, even though Cass has these molded into this center part, I did drill out those windows around the BC deck. I just think it's going to be easier for me to deal with. Rather than masking them off, having to pull off mask, remask them, repaint them, it's going to be easier just to leave that clear. And then I haven't decided yet. I think what I'm going to try to do is print some clear inserts that I can push into these windows once it's painted. And it'll be clear resin inserts. They'll have a little bit of depth to them, so I think that'll help pick up the light a little better and make these light evenly. So I think that's what I'm going to do with these, and I want to be able to have the same lighting on the BC deck. So I went ahead and drilled those out just to make it a little easier to deal with. But that's pretty much what I want to point out with that. But so that is correct on these parts, though, when you get them, if you're interested in ordering these when I put them up. I still got to finish. Next episode we'll work on the bottom half of the saucer, modifying that. I've got all the inserts I've made for that over here. And once I am done with that and have verified that these all work properly and I don't need to make any more adjustments to them, hopefully I don't have to make as many adjustments to them as I did for these 2 parts. These 2 were a lot of work to get them to kind of line up and fit into place properly. But these should be a little bit easier. These are window rim inserts for the rim. And then this is for that back corner where the rim kind of ends and you go into the main body of the hull. And then this is for the back section of the hull. On each side I've got these. So once I get these tested out and I verify that these are good to go, I'll be able to start offering these aftermarket parts. I will be turning them over to Cass at some point as soon as he's ready for them. But until he's ready for them, I'll probably offer them myself for a little bit. Not as a download, but I will offer these as a printed part until Cass is ready to start offering the poured resin part, the cast resin parts that he does so well over at Lake Monster Details. So we'll talk about that more next episode. Like I said, we'll work on that bottom, modifying the bottom of the hull, And then maybe also work on, because there's a couple modifications we got to do to that back side that I had talked about before, where there's triangles on either side of the shuttle bays. So we'll take a look at that next episode. I'm going to get this episode put up so everybody knows that there is some work being done on this. It's been real slow going lately because of my day job. Keeps me busy. This is kind of our busy season, so it keeps me busy, and then I don't have a lot of time to come in and work on this after work, so I really only have a day or two during the week to work on it when I'm off. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate all the feedback and comments that people leave. And please, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me out tremendously, especially with my sponsors. And as always, shout out to my sponsors: Cass over Lake Monster Details, Gus over at GCals, Gary over at Mass Design, and Paul over at Paragrafix. So thank you to all of them for their sponsorship and support. And again, thank you to everybody else that has subscribed already for your support. And till next time, guys, keep modeling.